Geek Tank Radio, News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
Welcome, everyone. We are the Geek Patrol, and our microphones don't have a stun setting. Today's episode of Geek Tank Radio is brought to you by Gotham Realtors, specializing in premium oceanfront commercial properties. Oh, boy. And they're having a fire sale today,
Joe,
right now.
You're spoiling the movie already.
Yeah, right out of the gate, 2 seconds in, spoiler. You know, Al,
Aren't those the guys that were underwriting the Rancor damage last week?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Bad news. The timing is everything, folks. But anyway, welcome to Geek Tank Radio, everybody. I'm Joe Thorderson, here with my friends Brandon Olmstead and Allan Gilbreth, and our buddy Max behind the glass. And in a moment, we're going to introduce a special guest, somebody that's been away too long. He needs to be, you know, more regular visits, but he's busy. He's a busy guy.
Last week when we were at the home show, off the air, we were talking about people that we haven't had on in a while.
Yeah.
And we were realizing we have so many regulars that we haven't brought to our new home, and he was at the top of the list.
Yeah, so we're going to bring him in just a second. Before that, Brandon, now we really beat our Batman discussion into the ground last week.
We did.
As we're wont to do, because anytime anything happins with Batman, you and I, of course, are going to dig our heels in and just go for it.
And I'm going to go ahead and throw this out there to the audience. If you would like to see me and Joe get together every once in a while and just do like a 2-hour Batman podcast that we can throw on our Spotify channel, we can do it.
Yeah, let's do it with just you and me, because Allan likes to derail the conversation.
Well, because Allan doesn't like Batman.
Yeah, Allan hates everything. He doesn't care, unless it's food. Unless Batman starts a cooking show, he doesn't care.
Hey, I'm sure that somewhere out there is a Gotham City diner cookbook.
Yeah.
Well, there needs to be, because it's all depressing food.
Yeah, so
they don't do anything happy.
It's just you take comfort food and you take food from Jersey and you mix the two.
So how about this, Brandon?
I think I just killed Allan's appetite, which has never happened before.
How about this? Let's just do a few cursory spoiler-like comments about the Batman, and then we'll bring our guest in a minute. But I'm just going to say it right out of the gate. It is absolutely my favorite live-action Batman, hands down.
I completely agree with you.
Okay, good.
Yeah, look at this. Me and Joe agreeing on a movie. That also doesn't happen often, and I bet we come at it from a different, the same angles too.
Well, here's my angle. Basically, I've kind of beat a dead horse on this one too. My favorite Batman content in terms of reading material is from like the mid to late 80s and into the early 90s. I think that was a golden era. It all revolved around the time the 89 Batman movie came out. All these titles, including my favorite, which is Legends of the Dark Knight. And I feel like, and then some of the Long Halloween and some of these epic stories. And I felt like Matt Reeves and I saw the same thing about Batman. He and I are both fans of the same aspects of Batman, I felt.
There is something that has been missing from all the Batman movies when it comes down to it. You'll see a little glimpse here, a little glimpse there. But honestly, when it comes to Batman media, the best that it's ever been before this was in the game Arkham Asylum.
Where video games.
It's just as much a detective story as it is an action beat 'em up. And that's what's so great about this is we actually lean into the if you took the characters of Batman and Catwoman and all them out of this and just made this like, a Sam Spade story where there's something going on and he's kind of working with the cops but also against the cops and everything, this would fit in with those kind of movies, those noir detective stories.
And the look was just gritty. It looked great.
This movie is gorgeous.
And it's and the other part of that is, Brandon, I think if there's something lacking in the Christopher Nolan trilogy for me, it's that the stakes are too high. The city is going to be taken over, the whole, know. And when Batman is only involved in situations like that, I feel like you're missing a big part of his character, because what makes him cool is the average street thug that's wondering if Batman is going to come out of the shadows and we kick his butt. And, we get both. We get a mixture of epic and street level.
We get to see that stuff. In fact, the big, crazy, epic story doesn't really even factor in until way later after. There was an hour left after I thought the story was over, and then they surprised me with more story that made it even better. I did not realize I was in the theater for 3 hours.
It doesn't feel like a 3-hour movie. And folks, I would say if you've got any friends that are maybe they're not into superhero movies, this isn't even. I hardly even think of this as a superhero movie.
as a Batman fan, I will tell you this is the most Batman movie we have ever gotten, while being the least Batman movie we've ever gotten.
What do you mean by that?
As in, everybody leans into this giant epic storyline when it comes to the movies, and this is a character that does so well in the smaller, more intimate stories, and we got that.
Yeah.
So
Good
we're
point.
finally gift wrapping Joe what he has always wanted.
Everything you have asked for since I've
that
known
is
you. Everything
the Batman
that you talked about.
We have a Batman story all about that character.
Down to little details. This isn't a spoiler, but if you remember, Brandon, we said one of the things that you get in the comics are Batman's thoughts. You get his inner monologue.
His
because
narration.
You get his narration. Well, we got a little
You
of that.
get
We've
that.
been saying we've wanted something like that all along,
Yeah.
and we finally get it. It's just outstanding.
his
I'm going to
journal-
see it again Sunday. So
Yeah.
it's awesome. So that's it. We're not going to ruin it because it really is a unique
We're
movie
gonna give you guys.
experience.
We're going to
Check
give
it
you guys
out.
a week.
Yeah, it's well worth seeing. So, all right, we're going to shift gears. We're going to continue a discussion of the arts, but it's going to be with a very special guest, and he's a geek, but he's also very cultured. We'll bring him in. So stand by. You're listening to Geek Tank Radio here on News Talk 98.9, The Roar of Memphis. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Geek Tank Radio.
As a jock, it is my duty to give nerds a hard time.
News Talk 98.9, The Roar of Memphis.
Yeah, because nobody screams cool like Homer Simpson. Right? Anyway, welcome back to Geek Tank Radio. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor. Start that again.
You're on the wrong
I'm Joe
show.
Boy, I mixed it up this morning, too. I've got Batman on the brain. I'm Joe Thorderson here with my friends Brandon Olmstead and Allan Gilbreth and our buddy Max behind the glass. And it's time to introduce our guest who has been sitting here quietly and patiently. But we've got our friend Ned Canty. He's the director of Opera Memphis. And right away, I can tell all of our new listeners are going, what's
Wait,
he
what?
doing here? A cultured,
yes.
sophisticated director, well-articulated, well-traveled, very sophisticated man. What is he doing on a geek show? Well, hey, he's one of us people. And
Have you ever seen an opera?
yeah, no
If
kidding.
you've seen an opera, come on, guys.
Well,
this is original
That's
geekdom.
the problem. People are biased, and they don't realize what you do, Ned.
Well, Ned, welcome back, man. It's been too long, man.
It's so good to be back here, guys.
Yeah, Ned's a fellow traveler. He's a geek, but one thing that because Ned, I grew up. My mom took me to the opera, and I've been around the arts like that for quite a while. But as I recall, growing up in Chicago, the opera was a pretty big deal. You got dressed up. The tickets were expensive. It was a pretty big fancy type of night out. And you're kind of a different approach here, right? I mean,
I think the getting dressed up, all that fanciness. If people want to get dressed up to go out for a night, that's great. But really, the only rule we have with how to dress for opera is no shirt, no shoes, no opera. Other than that, dress to be comfortable. Like you're going out to see entertainment, the same as if you were going out to see a movie or anything else.
You just asked somebody to come dressed like Donald Duck.
yeah, no kidding.
I will give you a free ticket if you arrive dressed as Donald Duck. And
Okay,
I'll buy
he
the
doesn't
first
wear
No
trans
pants,
bar
though.
afterwards. So yeah.
But Ned, one of the things that if you're a longtime listener of Geek Tank Radio, you already know this. But one of the approaches and one of the things that Ned you've tried to emphasize over the years is the fact that opera was a very street level form of art. It was for the masses, and somehow over the last 100 years or so, it's kind of been not hijacked, but a lot of people have just decided that.
It was a really convenient way for people in the beginning of the 20th century and the late 19th century to say, we are important and you are not. And in America, we always find ways to say, we're better than you are.
Yeah.
But the actual art form, even if you go now into places like Italy, the barista at the coffee shop is going to give you an earful about the show that they saw last night, because for them, it is popular entertainment. And, somehow it just got sidetracked around like the 20s, 30s, 1920s, 1930s. And it's taken us a long time to try to get it back on track. But the things that make it important, the things that make it valuable, and the things that made me fall in love with it are the same things that made me fall in love with The Dark Knight Returns or any of the geeky things that I was doing. And, my experience with a game like Mass Effect 3, something like that,
Right.
is purely operatic. Dragon Age Inquisition, that is a purely operatic experience for me. And what we do in the opera has those same sort of crossovers.
It's funny you say that because Ned, you've talked to us before about the intersection of of video games and opera, which I thought was hilarious, and yet you articulate and the intersection between Batman or the intersection between pop culture and opera. It is just it's a valid. I don't want to say valid. It is an art form that I think most people need to take a second look at. So.
Even when you think about when people say something was really intense, they might say it's dramatic. But when they want to say it was ultra over the top intense, they say it was operatic.
Yeah,
I mean that's what we
Good
traffic
point.
in. We traffic in extreme emotions, which is kind of what most games, most comics. It's all about the same thing. It's about these extremes that these characters are going through.
and if you don't believe that, go to an opera and then the next night sit at anybody's D&D table.
Yeah.
Max, it's funny too because now that Ned's saying that, anime is all about extreme emotional and Attack on Titan, it's the music in there is very operatic. It's always, way over the top like that. So, well, Ned, you're in here today to talk about opera, but also there's a couple of, it's funny, we were talking about how you try to bring opera to the masses, we should say, or maybe reclaiming the fact that it's opera's for everybody, and yet right out of the gate here, you want to promote something that is not for everybody. It's an 18-plus opera. What are we getting into here,
This one
Ned?
isn't for kids. So our opera that's coming up, it opens next week, is it's Opera MA for language and content.
Right.
Okay.
And it's actually 2 one-act operas, and the first one is called The Companion, and it's sort of like an operatic Black Mirror or Twilight Zone episode, one of the lighter ones.
Cool.
It's about a woman who doesn't have time for a relationship, so she buys a companion, a lifelike android who cooks for her, cleans for her, services her in the bedroom, and she wants to get him upgraded because, unfortunately, the basic model that she could afford still has pop-up ads. So while he'll
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Let's be tasteful here, Ed.
Oh, yes.
Pop-up ads.
So he'll be massaging her feet or something, and he'll suddenly have an ad for foot fungus or something like that.
You have no idea. I have been waiting all morning for you to say that, to look at their faces.
That's brilliant.
Because I'm the only person in this room that knew what was going to happen when you said that.
Yes.
So wait a minute. So it's like the free app that you get.
Right.
and it's
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. And
You want to get the pop-up ads out? Well, one of my favorite expressions was, you're getting a massage and suddenly it goes, and we have lovely marbled beef for sale at Piccadilly to da-da-da. It's the non sequitur of this.
Wait, who?
So he's basically Facebook.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Yeah. Who wrote this? You said it's only 4 years old.
Yeah, and so David Cody, who's a New York writer, and Robert Patterson, who's a composer. They do a lot of cool, fun stuff. The David Cody's libretto, the play part of the opera, it has allusions in there to Blade Runner. It has allusions to the first law of robotics, which is not only do they mention it, then they make fun of the norm for thinking that it's real somehow. That actually androids are not really governed by corporations. And there's a ton of Monty Python in there. I mean, so it's
really a comedy for sure.
Yeah, it's absolutely a comedy. It's a rom-com, basically, the way that some of those lighter Black Mirror episodes are.
Okay, because another thing you've taught us, Ned, I've paid attention, I've took notes, and you said,
And he keeps them all.
I always just assumed that opera was from hundreds of years ago and everything, and you told us that the 20th century and then into the 21st, there's been more operas written now than any point in history, right? Which surprises me. I didn't realize
more American operas written in the past 20 years than in the entire history of our country before then.
Very interesting.
It's going on. It's going on all around us, and we've been a part of it. We've commissioned shows that have been performed all across the country in L.A., in New York, San Francisco, Chicago, Dallas, Houston, New Orleans, you name it.
Okay, and then but you said this is a 2 opera, and then I'm going to try to pronounce it right. Pygmalion or Pygmalion.
Think male like a male.
So this one is 200 years old, and you're teaming it up with an opera from 4 years, and I'm sure there's a tie-in, right? Yeah.
Can
They're
I
not
just
that different.
Can I just go? You've never heard of Pygmalion?
I feel like I've heard of it, but I know I haven't seen it. So I haven't seen every opera. My mom
We need
was
to
partial
get him out of
to
the baseball zone.
Ned, Mozart didn't.
So
Mozart
Pygmalion-
didn't do this, right? Because my mom always took me to Mozart.
Yes,
That was
and,
her.
Hey, Mozart knew his myths too. I mean, there are very few operas that don't have some kind of element of the supernatural myth, something in there. And this one's no different. The myth is 2,000 years old, But basically, it's about a guy who can't find someone to love, so he creates a statue, and he falls in love with the statue. And really, that is the same story as every story that we, whether it's Mannequin, whether it's Weird Science, whether it's Blade Runner, all of these movies that have to do with, I'm not connecting, I'm not finding a human to connect with, so I'm going to create that human, or I'm going to create the perfect human. And, I grew up with The Next Generation. It started when I was a freshman in high school. And so, watching Data, thinking about what does it mean to be alive, because, he starts out, he's got these pop-up ads, and she wants him to be more spontaneous, more realistic. So at one point she says, I want you to say, I love you. And he says, shall I add that to the protocol? Because you can program him to say, I love you, but he's not going to say it unless she gets this maximum realism upgrade, which she does finally invest in, only to find that sometimes the realistic version of your boyfriend is actually not what you want if you're looking for the perfect guy. So it's, and again, that's
now he's leaving his socks on the floor.
She wants the foot rub. He wants a sandwich.
Exactly. You pretty much just described the third scene of this opera.
Did we give a spoiler warning?
Sorry.
Here, Ned?
That's okay. There's more of the opera after that, because really that idea of what, there is a lot in there about what does it mean to be alive. And, as we're going through some of these folks are pretty geeky who are working on the show with me, especially the soprano. Big
no
geek.
Surprise.
And so Sergio, who plays the robot, huge Spider-Man guy.
We'd never be mentioning words like, Frankenstein at this point, or golems, or, whatever level of mythology, from real mythology all the way forward, do you want to talk about? This is opera, folks. This is where it all started, began, was made popular. And to be honest, 2,000 years ago, they didn't make a movie out of your work. They made an opera. And that's how you knew you had made it.
Yeah. And actually, there's a reason, there's a benefit to listening to Geek Tank Radio, because you're offering a discount code for these shows, right? 18 plus, though. Don't bring your kids. So.
18 plus, no kids allowed, but it's a 2-for-1 code. If you go to the operamemphis.org website, you go to buy tickets, the code is Tears in Rain. And if you don't get the reference, then why are you listening to the show?
I don't know if I get it, to be honest. I'm
going
to get scolded
Wait,
on the air.
we've always said that we need to make him watch that.
That's true.
Okay, well,
that
there you go.
True.
Tears in Rain. I'll get educated when we go to break. But hey, Ned, piggybacking on something Allan just said, when we come back, I did a little research, and I found a science fiction story about going to outer space, and it's over 2,000 years old. And I bet you Ned knows all about it. We're going to unpack that when we come back. You're listening to Geek Tank Radio here on News Talk 98.9 The Roar of Memphis. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Geek Tank Radio.
Anyhow, you'll have to wait. The kids are busy right now.
Oh, is the organ harvesting clown here?
Nah, Rusty comes on Tuesdays now.
News Talk 98.9 The Roar of Memphis.
Well, I mean, you got to come up with unique birthday party ideas. Kids get bored after a while.
Well, I've found that the way to keep from having to host the kids' party, fill the piñata with ketchup.
There you go. Anyway, welcome back to that was the most random rejoinder we've ever got. Anyway, welcome back to Geek Tank Radio. I'm Joe Thorderson here with my friends Brandon Olmsted and Allan Gilbreth, and our buddy Max behind the glass, and our good friend Ned Canty, the director of Opera Memphis, who he's just, he's one of us, although I'm horrified to admit to learn, Ned, that you've never seen Batman Mask of the Phantasm, which is, Brandon and I agree, that's probably the best animated version of Batman.
It's true, but at the same time, you didn't get the Tears in Rain reference.
All right, well, it's basically from Blade Runner, which I can't stand, and that's the reason I just whatever.
I always liked you until this moment, but
that's okay.
At least it's not that you haven't seen it. Everyone has a right to dislike a masterpiece.
I'm sorry. You can not like the movie all day long, but if that speech didn't stand out to you, you have no soul.
Okay. All right. I mean, whatever. Let's not talk about what I don't like. Hey, Ned. In a minute, well, because that could take a while. But Ned, I shouldn't have
lineup
even
for the Cubs.
I shouldn't have even teased this, but I'm just gonna throw this out there because I did mention it. There was an ancient Greek writer back in the 2nd century A.D. from Syria, and he was sort of a wise guy. His name was Lucian Samosata. Anyway, he was a contemporary with Plato and all these other guys, and he was he was sort of disappointed with the state of literature then because he thought all these guys were kind of full of baloney.
Right.
They'd go on these travelogues and they'd write about all these mythical creatures that they saw. And they're like, well, just take our word for it. Yeah, there's a hippogriff. There's all this other. And so he wrote really what could be considered the first science fiction story. It's a story about going to outer space, meeting aliens on the moon, having wars on the planet Venus and all this other. So it's worth a look, but I don't want to eat up your time here. So look up Lucian of Samosata and
Samosata.
I think it's Sarasota.
And the funny thing is, it's called A True Story. That's what it's called. It's A Traveler's True Tale. So look it up.
He
it's
was
funny.
a Syrian and he was a satirist.
Yeah. Oh, he's a wise guy.
Oh, yes.
So from now on, when Joe makes a dad joke, we can call it a Lucian joke.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
Awesome.
just to reinforce kind of this principle you brought us, Ned, that none of this stuff is new. Science fiction, fantasy, horror, all of it, and it kind of coalesces in opera. Opera's been doing this a lot longer than the movies have. That's for sure.
And these superheroes are our mythic figures. It's our Hercules. Sometimes it's Hercules is both. It's our Loki, our Thor, etc. But it's also our Batman, our Superman, etc.
Yeah.
So most of the earliest operas are all about the gods. They're all supernatural. But even in terms of science fiction, in 1777, Joseph Haydn wrote an opera called Il Mondo della Luna, where the daughters of this guy decide to embarrass him because he's being mean to them by getting him drunk, and then when he wakes up, they pretend that he's woken up on the moon, that he's been kidnapped by moon creatures and brought to the moon.
All right.
All right,
So
that's
this is
awesome.
more than 200 years ago that they were doing this. This is before the film, the name of which I'm forgetting. This is before H.G. Wells. Opera was telling these stories.
That's awesome.
Oh, dude, what's really bad is that, you bringing that up, it reminds me of a story that we had going on at our comic shop, and it was more to convince somebody that this comic actually existed. We were pulling, it's like, yeah, I've had a copy for years. It was called Aquaman on the Moon. Because there's no water, he can't do anything.
Yeah, what power? Yeah. Anyway.
Right.
But yeah, you bringing up the,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, all right, Aquaman on the Moon, yeah.
That definitely sounds fake.
What's
but
interesting-
But now I want to see if you can make an opera of it.
I will do what I can.
Well, Ned,
I'll
what's
work on it.
interesting about this is you're bringing a two-act opera. You said you've got The Companion, which is a very modern story written 4 years ago, paired up with Pygmalion. Did I say it right?
Pygmalion.
Which is a 200-year-old story, yet the themes pretty much intersect. And
So
This guy falls in love with his statue, and he thinks he's going insane because he starts seeing the statue move, and he prays to Venus, the god of love, to bring her to life. And again, it's the story in The Companion. The way that I've been describing it to the singers who are geeks is basically we're watching this android achieve self-awareness, right? We're watching him become sentient. And this is kind of the same thing. It's that same story. What does it mean to be alive? What does it mean to be human? What does it mean to be in love? And we've been asking ourselves that for as long as we could ask ourselves that.
but what you're telling us is that you have a sci-fi double feature.
Exactly. It's just one of them was written 200 years ago, and one of them was written after Blade Runner, that masterpiece that everyone should love.
That's interesting. Who's responsible for putting this together? As if I had to ask, who's responsible for who's the brainchild behind this?
He wants to know who to go after with the torches and pitchforks.
Right, it's me. I mean,
Big surprise.
I love seeing the connections. I love finding these things. I direct a lot of comedies, and there are jokes in this 200-year-old opera, and there are jokes in this Roman story that are the same jokes. People have been laughing at fart jokes forever. We might want to think we invented them.
Nope.
But the same things that are funny to us were funny to people 100 years ago, 1,000, 2,000 more. And I'm sure that all of the plays that we just don't have written records of going back before the Greeks and the Romans were still dealing with fart jokes. I mean, there are certain things that are essential to us as humans.
I'm going to say it here. If you are a really old listener to Geek Tank Radio, you're going to learn where the first whoopee cushion came from, and it was Emperor Heliogabalus. Remember that story? You might have been here for that one, Ned. It was a Roman emperor. He was like a teenager. Boy, this kid was a mess. He was a practical joker.
So he was an ancestor of yours.
Yeah, and he invented the whoopee cushion, but it was made out of like an animal bladder or something.
Yes, made out of pig's bladder.
But Brandon, you talked about, you mentioned how they put him asleep and then they make him think that they woke up on the moon. Well, he would get these, he'd have these parties, he'd get everybody really drunk, and he would put them in, after they passed out inside rooms with like toothless lions and things like that. So you talk about you wake up to.
Right. There's a part
so
of me.
everything. You know,
There's a
everything
part
old
of me
is new
that's
again.
disgusted by declawing and defanging a lion, but at the
Right.
same time, that had to be hilarious.
I will say this: it didn't end well for Hela. He pretty much. Wait, Is it Heliogabalus? I think it is.
Yes, you're
Okay.
Yeah.
He didn't have a long.
I was
going
gonna
to
say most of the people listening to this
No,
episode
no,
are driving
no.
at the moment, so they're probably not going to have time to look it up.
He died of a Roman wedgie.
Yeah, but
We'll see if
Ned,
Joe buys that.
Ned, the opera. Well, I mean, we missed it in 2020 altogether. And so, is this the first outing? I guess you could
This
say.
is the first indoor opera that we've done in sort of pre-COVID conditions. We a week after we had to shut down the theaters, we borrowed a horse trailer from a friend in Mississippi, and we started driving around the town doing free concerts in various neighborhoods so that people could come down to the front of their lawn and we could still do something. And it was one of my favorite things we've ever done in my 11 years here, because it really showed the difference between connecting with real humans. I mean, there's a reason why all of us go to cons, because we want to share our love of what we enjoy with other human beings in person. And going to the arts, going to the opera is the same thing. And so we've had stuff going on. We've never stopped singing. We've never stopped performing. But this is the first sort of regular season style show that we've been able to do. Even with that said, we still, we're only selling half the theater. We might be able to open that up, but we had to make these plans, 9 months ago.
Right.
So, but we are getting back towards that normalcy. So we're hoping that
as
people will
normal
come
as
out and
any
cheer.
of us can
Yeah,
be.
well, fair point. But we really want people to come out, and I would say that I didn't grow up with opera. I came to opera late in life. The first opera I saw when I was 18, I didn't like, and I didn't see another one until I was 26, and it was the first opera I was hired to work on, and that was my next opera. So I did not expect to love it. I didn't expect to fall in love with it at that moment. I thought I was just helping to pay my rent. And so if you are curious about different types of art, different types of storytelling, if you are a cultural omnivore or a pop cultural omnivore, as I am, as I think most people should be, then this is a really great way to come and just check it out. Because the first one is in English, it's modern, it gives you a sense of one style of opera. And then the second one is Italian, but we have translated titles, right? So you can read what's happening the whole time, although often you don't even need them because the music is so powerful. So you get, in 90 minutes, you get like 2 tastes of opera. And, if you could imagine picking 2 movies that showed very different sides of the pop cultural spectrum, right? 2 different comic books or comic book movies or whatever, that gave people an idea of, if you like one of these 2, then you should go and explore these other ones. This is a great opera for that.
You're making me think of something too, Ned. So one is 200 years old, one is 4 years old. Which one are you doing first? Which act?
So we're actually doing the companion first, the modern one. And then so Pygmalion, the 200-year-old opera, one of the characters talks about the fact that you can now walk into paintings. And so the second act is presented as the 2 of them in the metaverse going to this opera with their, haptic suits and, glasses on. I don't want it to be Zuckerberg's metaverse. It'll be somebody else's metaverse. But
Okay,
basically, it's so we're doing the older one second for that reason.
That's interesting. So, Ned's an out-of-the-box thinker. I would have assumed it's going to be the old one first and then not. So, all right, well, we're going to unpack more of these the opera surprises going on here. You're listening to Geek Tank Radio here on News Talk 98.9, The Roar of Memphis. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Geek Tank Radio.
Also, they told me you guys look like dorks. They look like dorks!
News Talk 98.9, The Roar of Memphis.
Bender's always ready to defend us. Good for you, Bender. Anyway, welcome back to Geek Tank Radio. What, Brandon? Okay.
My mic's not on.
Oh.
Okay, now I'm back. Hey, guys.
Hey, Brandon, nice of you to join us.
Peek behind the curtain.
Okay, anyway, welcome back to Geek Tank Radio. I'm Joe Thorderson here with my friends Brandon Olmstead and Allan Gilbreth and our buddy Max behind the glass and our special pal Ned Canty, director of Opera Memphis. And one would assume that if you're listening to a radio show and you got the director of Opera Memphis he's traveled all over, he deals with culture and sophistication. If you could hear the conversation going on off the air, we're dealing with the entomology or the history of flatulence. We're dealing with You know,
All right,
some
all right.
pretty weird subjects today,
So-
Ned.
so-
I mean,
Max
Hold on,
is digging
hold on.
up the ancient Sanskrit scrolls all
Yeah.
about the process.
So,
What
yeah.
can we tell you?
anyway, very weird. You never know what you're going to
All
get.
right, but Joe, you just
13
coalesced a point I want to make. Welcome to opera. Nothing is off the table. Opera is crazy love affairs, gods, myths, of twist you've never saw coming, twist you see coming 2 miles away and you're still thrilled when they happen, of unexpected burst of strange things from the chorus. I'm thinking of 50 different operas just running through my mind here because as a supervillain, I am a massive consumer of opera. And well, it's in the card. You know, you get your opera subscription and you get your supervillain card.
It's how they learn their monologues.
It is.
Yeah, because Ned, you know, you're bringing us a 2-part. Well, it's a 2-act opera. One
2
is,
vignettes.
The Companion, which was a 4-year-old opera that ties in with falling in love with your AI and all that. And this is not for kids, folks. It's normally Ned brings us kind of family friendly stuff. Not this year.
Yeah, and we have plenty of that. That'll be happening. We've got in April we do 30 days of opera. That's 30 days of free performances all throughout the city. We'll be doing a family opera for free at a couple of different locations. So you go on our website and learn more about that. So we absolutely have family friendly stuff if that's what you're looking for. And the fact of the matter is that a lot of the operas that we do regularly are filled with sex and violence. They should be rated high, sort of like Shakespeare. These things should not be studied by 8th graders. And if really the English teachers knew how dirty Mercutio was, if they really knew what he was saying, we probably would wait until college to teach some of these things. And opera's the same way. People will bring their kids, to see an opera. And if those kids can read, they're seeing a story about prostitution, adultery, murder, anger, rage, all of the good things in life. But some of them are pretty adult.
Yeah, well, and so but what's interesting, and actually, we better do this before we forget. This is at Playhouse on the Square because there's a lot of venues in town. So this is Playhouse on the Square, and you're offering a 2-for-1 ticket code for our listeners. We're honored, Ned.
Yeah.
So
it's Tears and Rain. Go on our website, operamemphis.org, and when you go to check out, just enter Tears and Rain.
You know what that is, Allan? What it is they you use this code which shows that you listen to Geek Tank Radio, and then they seat you like together so that all the geeks are kind of corralled into one area. So
it means that I make sure that they get the best seats.
Oh,
Because
okay.
I know my geeks.
I was gonna say Ned's one of us.
That's
He takes
true.
care of
You
us.
don't understand, Joe.
But Ned, how are you gonna? First of all, I would have thought it would just be natural that you play the 200-year-old opera scene first, and then go to the modern one. But you're doing this in reverse. And how are you connecting these concepts?
Part of it for me is that one of the things I love about opera is it's an analog art form. I can't sing worth a damn. I'm not an artist in that way. But opera singers can create these sounds that are loud enough to be heard over a 30-piece orchestra in a 2,000-seat hall, and it is a kind of superpower that requires a lot of training, that sort of thing. But so I love the analog nature of it. And one of the debates in this woman who is trying to upgrade her robot boyfriend, the technician who comes in, Dax, asks her on a date. And he says, so you're this beautiful woman, you got some money. Why do you have a companion? Why don't you have a real boy? And she says, why don't you have one? You work for the company. And he says, I prefer organic. And this is a world in which it's sort of like a Gattaca, where to do things old school organic is kind of a weird fetish almost. He's abnormal. He's the weirdo because he wants to have an organic experience. And so that analog versus digital divide is something that I think about a lot because we do crave in-person experiences. It's just if the Egg McMuffin or the McGriddle is 20 feet away and, the good breakfast is 2 miles away, you're going to be tempted to get the McGriddle. I'm going to be tempted. And we've all learned how much incredible art there is, how much there is to do on our sofa. And whatever it is, whether it's us, whether it's Playhouse, whether it's, the ballet, whatever it is that you're going out to, there is something that comes from sharing an experience in public rather than in private, sharing these artistic experiences. It's why we still go to the movies.
Yeah,
it's why
Allan.
we go to cons.
because Allan wants movies to go away, and
That's
Mr.
not what he
Curmudgeon.
It's
said.
the first thing I think in
have
5
never
years of
said
being on
that.
this show that
I
I'd
have
Oh,
never
he
said
hates
that.
the movies.
I have never said that.
He is not a fan of the modern theater experience.
Correct.
Okay.
However, what I will point out, when you go to a live opera experience, what you do not get anywhere else is the power of that performer.
Right.
When you go to a well-designed theater designed for a comfortable experience, Joe,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
some of us that have issues.
Well, you don't have those without the nuts and bolts theaters either, keeping the lights on or lights off, I should say. Yeah.
When you go to a theater designed for the experience, it is an immersion of what takes hundreds of thousands of dollars in electronics to do in a movie theater. One usually very small human being walks out there on that stage, takes a deep breath, and
You are transported to a new world.
say that again, Brandon.
You are transported to a new world.
I couldn't say it any better.
Hey, Ned, I always hate when Allan brings up a good point because then I got to give him credit and then he'll
Allan-
hold it.
Joe's
but,
admitting Allan's right. Take a shot.
No, but Ned, Allan does make a good point. Okay, when you go to a movie, you're seeing a produced thing. You're seeing a digital thing these days. There is something to be said for when you see people performing art in a live setting. Like, for example, I went to the Italian Fest about 10 years ago, and they had a country band there. And I have nothing against country music, but it's just not my thing. However, I had a lot of fun at this concert, and I actually enjoyed it being performed live. And I'm wondering, what is the dynamic? Why do we as humans crave or enjoy that live performance? There's got to be something to that.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, there are physiological reasons about looking somebody in the eye and what that does to your brain chemistry. I mean, it's literally hardwired into us that we want to share these experiences with other people. And again, so many I didn't like the Venture Brothers until I watched an episode at the New York Comic Con in like 2009, maybe
With the crowd.
And
good
I
point.
found it clever. But I didn't enjoy it until I felt it with them, and then I went back, watched every episode I'd missed, and fell in love with it the rest of the time.
I feel the same way about sports.
Yeah.
I don't care what they're doing on TV, but if you take me to a baseball game, I am like a kid in a candy shop.
Yeah.
Same with football or basketball, and I am a hockey fan, so
yeah.
I don't care about
This is where
teams.
I'm going
I
to
just
bring up
like
and look Ned dead in the eye and go, sing to me.
Yes.
Talk about it.
So that's where we.
This is an amazing. If you have not experienced this, it is absolutely astounding.
Yeah, so this is basically a program that we started during the pandemic where you can basically hire us to come to your house and we will perform a curated concert of opera and musical theater. And, musical theater essentially is the same as opera in any meaningful metric. And we've been doing it for about 2 years, mainly because for a long time people couldn't go and gather in groups. And we did this for, groups of 10 or 20. We did this in cul-de-sacs for whole neighborhoods of, 100, 150. And it's a program that we were able to institute very quickly in the pandemic. And that was then copied by companies across the country, most of whom asked our permission first.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, but
I knew you guys were out of the box
Oh,
thinkers.
well, and then of
That's
course,
cool.
6 months later, the New York Philharmonic does it, and the New York Times writes about it as if they were the first ones to do it.
this amazing,
But,
groundbreaking
like
thing.
I'm sure the New York Times thinks that in Memphis we do our operas with a jug band instead
Right.
of a symphony,
Which
which
we can.
whatever. We could if we wanted to,
and
but,
it'd still be better than anything in New York.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
As
That's
a
cool to
recovering
know.
New
I
Yorker,
threw it.
as a recovering New Yorker, I understand the coastal elite mindset, and it really is. I think there is something that in a city of cultural omnivores, musical omnivores like Memphis, there is a richness to any cultural experience you have that in New York, which is a city of cultural specialists, where there are people who only go to one type of thing.
Sorry, Ned, but you
Yeah.
triggered me, and I don't want to run out of time because
Sorry to trigger.
we discussed this at the Cooper Young Festival, Brandon, and
Right.
you guys will remember this. We said, because I've lived in Chicago, I've lived in California and everything, and I think the art community in Memphis is utterly unique in that I see so much interconnectedness. I mean, who would have thought we'd have the director of Opera Memphis on a show, and we've had you in talking about comic book art and things, but every art form in Memphis seems very interconnected and supporting each other.
Yeah.
So.
And we all support each other. We all help each other. We all collaborate on creating new things. One of my favorite things we've done is with New Ballet Ensemble. We did a sing-off, dance-off where two singers are doing very florid, very difficult music, and jookers are dancing to it so that it's like a dance battle with an operatic component. And it's just great. I've done it for people at other opera companies. We performed it for them. And every one of them says, how did you do this and how do we do it in our city?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's great. It is. It's a very unique community out here. And Ned, we love the energy you've brought to Opera Memphis, man. Oh, sorry, Brandon. I thought you had something to add to that.
It's okay. You're good.
Hey, Ned, we don't want to run out of time. So tell us again, how do we check out the new new 18 plus?
Right.
But anyway.
Adult audiences only. Go to operamemphis.org and you can learn more about the show, where it's at, when it's playing. And you can use the code Tears and Rain when you go to buy your tickets, and you will get 2 for 1. And that's good for any price ticket.
Wait, when is it playing? We didn't even bring that up.
The 12th and the 13th, so a week from
Maybe
today.
We ought to say that.
Opens a week from
next
today.
Week.
And it's that Saturday, Sunday of next weekend, and then the following Friday and Saturday.
Okay. Is this a good date movie, or is this going to make people rethink their
This is a great date. If
life
you want,
choices?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is a great date. And you don't even need to tell the person you're bringing on the date that you got a 2 for 1.
Okay, because, Ned,
go.
we don't want to split any couples up. We don't want somebody deciding, well, you know what? I can just go marry a robot instead, so... I don't know. Ned, it's always fun having you on, and don't be a stranger. We got to get you on here more often. But we're out of time, guys. So until next week, we are the Geek Patrol, and I am Joe Thorderson.
I'm Ned Canty.
I'm Allan Gilbreth.
And I am Brandon Olmsted, challenging you to see the Batman before we spoil it for you next weekend.